WandaVision, episode 5, a very special program on this very special episode. This was kind of cool because we're actually getting a show now, people. Like the show, like the show is coming together. They ripped off the Family Tie, the Family Ties house. They totally ripped that off, and they stole the Growing Pains intro, which which was cool to see. The a cappella version of the Growing Pains theme song was my favorite of all time. They also did because at the end of I believe it was Family Ties and Growing Pains. At the end, when it showed you like the producers or the production company that also worked on it, it was a picture of a dog with a frisbee in its mouth, and then the voice says like, "Sit, boo boo, sit, good dog," and the dog would go, "Urf." They actually did that, in the episode as well, which is cool. So this episode starts where remember they got the babies now, like they have babies. The babies are crying. They can't get the babies to shut up. Wanda and Vision trying to figure out, how do we get the babies to silence dear? And she's like, well, I don't know, honey, because they're just children and we don't know what to do. So then, she tried to use her magic to try to get the babies to quiet. And it was funny because the babies didn't, when she used her magic, it didn't work. So I'm just like, does your power not work on the children? Like, what are we doing? So then she was just like, well, honey, she's like, we need help to take care of our children. And then ding dong, here come Agnes. Agnes come rolling in. She's trying to do her comical stuff to get the babies to quiet down. And then, Vision and Wanda are talking, and they're just like, what are we going to do, dear? Because we're not parents. And then she's like, well, we'll figure it out as we go along. That's what parents do. And then, they were just like, well, I believe somebody said that, it'd be a lot easier if they were older or whatever. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the kids just disappeared, and then they were just like, what happened to the children, dear? And then they turned around, and then the kids were like 5 years old sitting on the steps. And I think I said before, I was like, because Wanda's pregnancy was accelerated, and her pregnancy, she did a 9-month pregnancy in in less than 5 minutes. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if the kids, if the kids' growth got accelerated as well. And that's kind of what happened. The crazy thing was, Agnes was sitting right there, and nobody said anything, and she didn't even say anything about the fact that they were babies and now that they're kids. Earlier on, when Agnes was trying to get the baby, she was talking to them about, enlisting her help with the children. There was a moment where Vision had said something, and then, let's say in TV form, somebody messed up the line. And when the line got messed up, Agnes broke character. And she said to Wanda, she was like, do you want me to take it from the top? Do you want me to say the line all over again? And both Vision and Wanda was kind of looking at her like, bitch, what is you talking about? and then Wanda was just like, no. She's like, oh, if you want to help with the children, just help with the children. And then she was just like, all right, Auntie Agnes to the rescue. And then Vision was like, what the bloody hell was that? It's like, what did she say? And then she's like, she said nothing, dear. You're going crazy. He's just like, no, did you not hear what I heard? And then she was just like, Vision, you're full of it or whatever. And I think that's when the kids grew. Actually, I believe the kids grew up because since Vision was like, what was Agnes talking about with the whole taking it from the top? I think the kids grew up just to stop him from, figuring that out, because once the kids grew up, he paused and he was just like, oh, do you hear the silence, dear? And then that's how that whole thing happened. So now the kids are 5. The next day, they're in the kitchen. The kids are like washing a dog because they found a stray dog. Wanda comes into the kitchen. She's like, oh, do you guys have a doggy? And then she's like playing with the dog or whatever. Vision comes in. He's like, hey, there's a new member of the family. And then, they're just like, oh, we have a stray dog and no means to, to take care of him. And then Wanda was like, Vision, honey. She's like, what are you wearing? And he's just like, I figured I'd get dressed because something's going to happen. And then she's like, what's going to happen? And then the doorbell rings and here come Agnes again. And then Vision even said, he was just like, yep, here comes Agnes, right on time, right on schedule, with exactly what we need in this particular situation. Because when they were struggling with the babies, here comes Agnes to become a babysitter. They have a stray dog. Here comes Agnes with a doghouse, whatever. And then Vision's starting to be like, yo, there's something going on. There's some problems up in here, because he's like, there's too much convenience going on here. Then Wanda ends up using her magic powers to make a dog collar because they decided to name the dog Sparky. And then Wanda used her powers to make a dog collar. And then Vision was like, woman, what are you doing? She's like, you used your power in front of Agnes. And she was like, oh, please. She's like, Vision, I'm tired of hiding who I am. And I don't think you should either. And then he's just like, no, Wanda, we agreed that we would not reveal our power. And then, and then Wanda was just like, all right, fine. She's like, kids, your daddy and I agreed that, you guys aren't old enough to have a dog until you're at least 10 years old. And then the kids looked at each other and then they grew to 10 years old. And I'm like, Agnes is sitting right there. So now I'm kind of like, are the kids making themselves, are the kids like doing that themselves? Is Wanda doing that, with her power or whatever? And I'm starting to think that there may be other forces at work here besides just Wanda. So now the kids are 10, they have the dog. Agnes just ain't saying nothing about the fact that these kids just grew up twice. And then, because Vision was like losing his ish over the whole thing, Wanda basically sent him to work. She came up with like some work emergency for him, so he had to go to work to go handle the emergency. Meanwhile, now at I was about to say Shield. Meanwhile, at Sword, Monica Rambeau, she wakes up, and then she meets Darcy. That's her name. Her name was Darcy. She meets Darcy. She meets Detective Wu. And they greet each other, and then they're just like, all right, there's a briefing going on about the whole thing. The douchebag head of Sword, he was just like, okay, let's assess the situation. He was just like, Wanda Maximoff, she's dangerous. We got to go win and bust that ass. Monica's whole thing, she was like, I don't think Wanda is a terrorist. I don't think this is politically driven, and I don't think she's a hostile threat. And then Homeboy was like, really? You don't think she's a threat? He's like, well, we got footage here 9 days ago. It's footage of Wanda Maxima busting in the Sword secret location, and she stole Vision's body from their secret location and dragged it out here to Westfield. So he was just like, anybody else still think she's not a threat? And then, so he was just like, we got to figure out what to do. We got to get back in this bitch. So now Darcy, Monica, and Wu, the three of them now, like, they're a team, and they're trying to figure out what, like all the stuff, that's going to happen. Because Monica's whole thing is, I'm going back in there. And then Darcy's like, are you sure you want to go back in there? She was like, bitch, I'm going back in there. So they're trying to figure out how to get her back in there. And then, while they were talking, they were basically just saying that Wanda's kind of like manipulating like reality, because Wu had asked, he was like, yeah, what's really good with these kids? Do we know who these kids are? And then she was just like, no. She was like, Wanda made those kids herself. So they was like, oh, so she's like warping reality. And if that's the case, they're, like, she's not creating new things, she's turning existing things into other things. And then Monica was just like, yeah, because she was like, didn't I have on a bulletproof vest when I went into the bubble to begin with? So she goes to the area where her clothes were. She ends up firing a gun at her clothes, and turns out her clothes were bulletproof, because Wanda basically transformed the clothes that she already had into clothes to fit the time period that they were in. And because those clothes consisted of bulletproof materials, the clothes that she had on became bulletproof. So Monica's whole thing now is, she's like, well, bet, if she's turning things into things that match the current time frame, all we have to do is send something into the bubble that matches that current time frame, and then there'll be no manipulation, and that thing will just be able to pass right through. So they send a 1980s, because we were in the 80s now, they send a 1980s drone in. The drone's flying in. Like I said, everything's going perfectly fine. Monica's plan is working. So now, Vision now, he's at work, and while he's at work, he's fixing the old school Apple computers. He's fixing those computers for the first time. When they got the computer turned on, a message from Darcy had came in talking about Wanda, and how like Wanda Maximoff is controlling people, and how the people in Westfield aren't safe. So everybody was like, wow, what the heck was that? So now Vision is just like, all right, shit ain't adding up. He's like, something's going on. And then something made him, because Vision still has his powers, apparently. Like, he still has like a lot of his power. He used his power to basically unlock the mind control that his coworker was going under. And once he used his power to unlock the mind control, his coworker was immediately like, yo, what the hell's going on? He was like, yo, what happened to my family? He's like, how long have I been here? What day is this? What month is this? Yo, you got to help me. This, she's crazy. He kept saying she. He never said Wanda directly, but he was like, yo, she's in my head. She's controlling me. You got to help us. And then he's like, I don't even know what to help you from. And then, and then he ended up like, putting the guy's mind back to normal. And now he's back in WandaVision land. And he's just like, all right, Vision, let's do some stuff or whatever. So now Vision's just like, all right, some bullshit. I'm about to go home and roll up on my wife. So Wanda's home talking to the kids, and they're having a conversation about family, and they're just like, because the kids were like, oh, where's dad? And then she's like, oh, dad went to work, kids. And then she's just like, the kids were like, oh, does dad not like us or whatever? She's like, oh, honey, no. She's like, parents just go through things, and that's what family does. And then just like you two are brothers, and that's what brothers do. And then one of them was like, do you have a brother? Then she was just like, and in that moment, she did tell them, she was like, yeah, she had a brother, but he's far, far away, and she's not going to be able to see him again. Then she started hearing like she started hearing the drone, started hearing like the drone airplane thing. So her and the kids go outside, they see the drone. Darcy was basically saying that Wanda was blocking the TV feed to not show the drone. Because again, like Wanda's been manipulating the TV show up until this point. So she's manipulating the TV show to the point where you can see Wanda and the kids looking at the drone, but you can't see the actual drone. So then Monica ended up talking to Wanda through the drone. And then, she was just like, Wanda, like, I just want to talk, this, that, and the third. The douchebag from Sword, he was just like, yo, fire! And then they fired on Wanda. Everything went, everything went black. We didn't see what happened after they fired on her. And then, the alarm went off. All the agents went outside to go see what was going on because something was going on with the bubble. All the Sword agents, they're outside. They got their guns pointed at the bubble. A little door opens up with the bubble. Wanda rolls up out of the bubble with the drone in hand, throws the drone back at them. Wanda rolled up like, y'all better back up before there's consequences and repercussions. And the way she came out was badass. And she was just like, yo, and I said this before. She was like, yo, I got my husband, I got my kids, I got a life, and I'll be damned if y'all ruin this for me. So I suggest you back off, or it's going to be a problem. And then, and then he was just like, oh, but you're keeping innocent people hostage. And she was like, mind your business. And then Monica stepped in, and then Monica was like, look, she was like, when I went in there, you didn't hurt me, you accepted me, you took me in, so you have to know that I'm not a threat, that I'm an ally. And she was like, first of all, I wasn't even the one that fired on you. And then she was just like, she's like, she's like, can I help you? She was, she's like, I want to help you. And then one was like, and how are you supposed to help me? And then she was like, well, what do you want? And then she was like, I want y'all to stay the F out of my business. And then she used her power to point all of the guns at the director of Sword. And I'm sorry, but in that moment, I was like, please shoot his ass. Because he was getting on my nerve. Like, he was really pissing me off up until that, but they didn't shoot him. Wanda went back into the bubble, and then she was just like, yo, remember what I told you? And then she went back to the good life. So so she's back in the bubble. When she opened the door to go check out the drone, the dog had ran off. So her and the kids went looking for the dog. They found the dog. Of course, Agnes found the dog. The dog was dead because it said that the dog had ate too many leaves or whatever. And then she was talking to the kids, and then she was just like, the kids actually said this, because the kids were a manifestation of Wanda's power. So the kids flat out said, the kids were like, yo, the dog is dead, Ma. He's like, just bring the dog back to life. And then Agnes was just like, you can bring people back from the dead. And I'm like, yo, shut up. Like, Agnes knows too much, right? Like, Agnes knows too much. And then Wanda gave the kids the 1980s sitcom speech where she was just like, she was like, when things happen, when we lose people, when people are gone from our lives, we just have to live with it. We can't change it, or we can't bring people back. And then as soon as she said that, here came Vision. So I'm like, that was very hypocritical. And then, then the whole family, the whole family went back home. So now, so the kids are home, the kids are upstairs. Nobody silenced Agnes, nobody silenced Agnes or whatever. And Wanda and Vision now, they're getting into a conversation because Vision's like, yo, bitch, what's really good? He's just like, yo, he's like, somebody at work, he was like, I unblocked his mind power that you put on him, and he told me what was really going on. And then the whole thing with the children and, Agnes and the town, he was just like, why are there no other kids in Westfield? And the park is across the street and I see no children. And then she's just like, Vision, what are you talking about? She's like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you doing? It's like, we're together. He's like, no, we're not together. He's like, I can't remember my memories past 2 days ago. And, and then he was just like, what you're doing is wrong, dear. He's like, what you're doing to the town is wrong, and you have to undo it. And then, and then this is what was very interesting, because I'm the one that said Wanda knows what she's doing. And that is true to a degree. But she said that when I first came, she said when it first happened, I wasn't sure what was going on. But then after a while, she was just like, fuck it, let's just run with it. And I feel like what's happening is, I'm a compromise here now. When the footage of Wanda going in the Sword and busting out Vision's body, I feel like someone is controlling Wanda. Someone's controlling Wanda. They made Wanda go to Sword to steal Vision's body. That person brought Wanda back to Westfield. That person made Wanda create the Westfield WandaVision bubble. At some point, Wanda kind of came back to normal. She came out of the mind control, but because she was in a situation where she had Vision back, she had kids, she had a family, at some point Wanda was just like, well, fuck it, we just gonna run with this then. So now she's just not questioning it, and she's doing every single thing she can to preserve it. So yeah, there are a lot of things where Wanda is forcing people to do stuff just to keep the lie alive. But I feel like another party is also playing a factor into how this whole thing got started. Especially because, like I said, Wanda flat out said she doesn't remember how we even got here, but she doesn't want to give it up. She's just like, whatever. And something that was really funny when Vision started the conversation, and then he was just like, Wanda, we're going to talk about this. You can't. She was like, we're going to talk about what you're doing because what you're doing is wrong. She was just like, no, we're not, honey. And then she just walked away and the credits rolled. I was like, damn. I was like, he just rolled the credits on my man like that. So now, so after that, and again, and just like with the rest of the show, every time there's a situation where something's happening that's going to expose the town, Agnes always rings the doorbell to interrupt it. And the doorbell rung this time too. And then Vision was just like, oh, here you go again with your magical mumbo jumbo. And then she's like, that wasn't me. She's like, I didn't do that. And then she's like, do you not trust me, Vision? And he was like, I want to, but I can't. So then she went to go answer the door. She was like, fine, I'll answer the door. So she answers the door. And then when Wanda answers the door, it was her long lost dead brother, Pietro. But it wasn't Pietro from Age of Ultron. It was Pietro from X-Men Days of Futures Past. And then that's how the show ended, and now everyone's confused. So, and I feel like the reason why Pedro came, again, that also feeds into me feeling like there's someone else controlling this. I feel like a lot of this has to do with Doctor Strange, whatever villain is going to be in the Doctor Strange movie, and this whole multiverse situation. Someone from the multiverse is definitely controlling Wanda. Or at least influencing Wanda, on some level. And that person, he's watching the WandaVision broadcast, and I believe that person is throwing, like every single time somebody tries to figure out the plan, that person keeps throwing little things in. And I feel like whoever this other entity is pulled Pietro from a different universe. If you watch The Flash, you understand how the multiverse works, because DC CW has been doing the multiverse since Flash season 2. This should not be a surprise to anyone who watches the Arrowverse. I feel like they pulled Pietro from a different universe, and they brought Pietro over here. Either that, or they created his likeness from a different universe, and they brought his likeness over here. So now there's like some multiversal crossovers happening. Probably in the Doctor Strange movie, just like they did in DC in the Arrowverse, they're probably going to merge certain worlds together, and that's how we're going to get X-Men in the MCU. But Pedro is here for now. And like I said, it's not the Pedro that we know, but Wanda didn't make a reference to him not being the Pietro that she knew. It was almost like she knew that was Pietro, although both that actor and her brother, the guy who played her brother, don't look anything alike. So this is pretty interesting, and that's how the episode ended with Pietro at the door and looking at Vision like, yo, what's up with the toy doll? So that was that was it. Like I said, so the show's finally getting really, really good. Like, the show's getting really good. So, and they're giving us both the WandaVision show and they're giving us Sword. It's not just 30 minutes of sitcom. So, like I said, I don't mind the sitcom stuff. I just don't want 30 minutes of the sitcom stuff. And I said it was cool to see the family ties and the Growing Pains references. So let me know what you think in the comments, because, like I said, it's picking up now. Do you agree with me that there's another entity out there that was controlling Wanda in the beginning? Do you think Wanda's just been in control this whole time? And what do you think this other person is, who I feel like is a female? Because like I said before, the Indian guy who Vision brought back to reality, he kept saying she. He never said Wanda by name, so just because he said she doesn't mean it's Wanda. She could mean a female villain who's doing all this controlling as well. And I don't trust Agnes either, because Agnes knows too much information. She's not surprised by any of it. And I feel like Agnes was, if there is like a bigger villain at work here, I feel like Agnes is working for that person, because Agnes trying to get her hands on them kids, because she's trying to get her hands on powered individuals. But like I said, let me know what you think. Tell me your WandaVision theories, so we can go back and forth and talk about it. Impact fan for life. We've been sharing some, Impact fans since 2008, 2004, 2008. He and I, we've been sharing, conversation back and forth on WandaVision and certain Marvel and DC properties. So like I said, so hit me up on YouTube, so let's talk about this and get this train going. The Flash trailer finally dropped early this week, so, I got a video up talking about that. And, Black Lightning comes out on Monday. No Batwoman this week because of the Super Bowl, but we do have Black Lightning on Monday, and we're going to talk about that Black Lightning because the culture's back, baby. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Leave a comment, like it, or subscribe. And for WandaVision, I'm out this bitch.